We got Jujo here. It'd be sweet if we could do like the full Brady Bunch, but we're just gonna have to
All the
do
squares,
this
yeah.
situation. Can you see the angle? Like, can you see your bandmates from there, or is this even
Yeah,
working?
I can. There's three of them, yeah?
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
kind of working, sort of, kind of. I don't know. I don't know. We'll try it. We'll try it. This is the first like hybrid scenario I've done, and it's gonna be really distracting because it's like cameras here, they're here, you're here. So I'm gonna feel
Will we be able to hear him through the headphones?
through the headphones, I think.
Okay,
like
cool.
when we're on the in the parts where we're not, I think that's gonna be like it's just gonna be like the speaker. We'll figure it out. Stand by.
I can't stand it.
Uranium Club. That clown's got a gun. Great song title. Great band as well. We also had Sparrowhawk. New Sparrowhawk. That is from the tape they're releasing this weekend. A track called The Villain. We had some Funkin' Spuds in there, and we also had new Ice Climber. And if you're just tuning in, this is Desert Islands, and I am speaking with. Okay, so this is half virtual, half in person, if you can kind of see here. So thank you for doing this. Also, thank you for trying to do this. And thank you for being patient enough to bear with me. So can everyone hear each other? Did you hear?
I heard you.
Yeah, okay, cool. We heard the laughter. Okay, so my first question, just because I've known some of y'all like for years, and some of y'all I just met, but just kind of looking up what you do outside of Ice Climber. How did this project start? I get how it maintains itself. Once you get some momentum, it's easy to kind of just like, yes, this is like it kind of you kind of ride the stallion, so to speak. But like, how did you manage to get this project off the ground, considering you're all in so many different things already? And how did you decide the initial core of improvisers?
So, it's easy to give you a one-word answer, and just say unintentional.
That makes sense, though.
But I don't know if you know Chris Knudsen, in the Chaos Orchestra, that marching band that like is noise musicians and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a ice shanty project called Rockbox, and he wanted my bands Inhumanity and like Curandera to perform. I say my bands, but Inhumanity is more like a project I was involved in. But either way, neither project in December could do it anymore, and he had asked us in the summer. So that was what, like, the first Rockbox happened in like 2020, the beginning of 2022, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Wow, was that really? It feels like it happened this year, but also like
it did, but it not that one.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, it's always been a thing. It's just like, no, that's wow, that's insane.
And yeah, so after that happened, I hit everybody up in those projects because like I had already been improvising with everybody in those projects. Curandera was like half devised, half improv, and Inhumanity was like half devised and half improv.
Right.
So I asked everybody a bit. Nobody but Charlie was available. Charlie Milky, who was in a bunch of bands as well, like Caballo Cósmico and whatnot. But Charlie played Space Base in La Curandera and the Ritual. And I was like, you want to do your Space Base thing with me for this thing? And we'll just call ourselves a one-off thing. And like, what other musicians do we play with? And Charlie was like, oh, I'm open, whatever. So I had been wanting to play with Ivan Cunningham just because he's incredible. And I also wanted to play with David Interwitz Williams, because also another incredible like electronic musician, and plays the keys and whatnot. And actually, we were trying to start a band, and we went through like 2 different configurations of players, and we couldn't get it off the ground because people, it was a rough time during 2021 still, because people were still getting sick. But we're getting sick a lot more frequently. And then also 2 people ended up moving out of the state.
Sure.
So that band didn't take off. So I was like, hey, David, do you want to do this one-off thing with us at the Lake Harriet Frozen festivities? And David was like, yeah, sure. So it was just this 4-piece, and we decided we were going to play this like drone ambient set.
Right.
And we played it. And we closed out the Rock Box that day. It was like the last day of the art shanties. And then much to our surprise, people who were there were like, that was awesome. Like, would you play this show?
Yeah.
And one of the first people who reached out to us was Loser Magnet, actually.
Great band.
Like, you want to play this show at the White Squirrel? And then we were like, we're not really a band, but okay, sure. And then I had posted like, hey, Facebook, we need a drummer, like for this lineup, like, and I think Paul here to my left misunderstood. But instead of telling us that he had mistaken what we had said, he just came with his drum kit and played drums for us. He thought we were looking for an extra act for the show.
Oh,
I'm not very bright.
And it just turns out he plays drums too. And I mean, you could tell the rest of that story if you want.
Yeah, so it was probably the first and only time I've ever played all improv music, and it was like drone ambient music, which I was like, do you even want drums on this? Usually there's no drums on drone and ambient music.
Fair point.
So I was just like, well, and I've known Charlie for a while, so I wanted to reach out and ask, like, what is this? What's going on?
Yeah.
But I just said, let's just wing it. I'll just show up on stage and we'll see what happens. And it was really a ball. And it was like, I've never felt probably freer than ever been playing drums. All improv to ambient drum, because you can literally do whatever you want. And then ever since then, I probably played like 20 minutes of just bombastic jazz fills. But Sochi must have liked that.
I love
they
it.
invited me back to play again, and the rest is
I was like, my God, this man is incredible at the drums.
Yeah.
And he was like, I haven't played the drums for anybody in 10 years or something. Like
about a decade.
And I was like, what?
We gotta change that.
Yeah, exactly. And then eventually Jujo joined us for like a set at Can Can Wonderland.
Nice.
And that's when Paul and Jujo met. And that's when the rhythm section of Ice Climber really came to life.
Oh, you didn't already know each other? Because I feel like well, you know how the West Bank goes. Like, I feel like it's hard to know who already doesn't know each other. And I feel like that's why people don't introduce each other. Because I'm surprised you two didn't already know each other before this project. Because like how many bands are you in right now, Jujo? Like Los Pinches Guys, is Turn Back Now still active?
No, Turn Back Now is not active. We think that became unactive about a year and a half ago.
Sure, yeah.
Then I play with my friend Claire Johnson.
That's right.
I also play with the group Pandalion. I also play with a couple other groups, but it's like 4 or 5 projects at the moment.
And it's kind of like why I asked the question of like, how did this start? Because a lot of the musicians that are in this, it's like, oh yeah, like it's like I feel like if I didn't already know them, we've already met, because it's like we did a gig years ago, and it's just like, oh yeah, they play in like 6 different things, and it's kind of how amazing this music scene is, and we can talk forever about that. But we have an amazing show that you're on tonight. We are going to be playing together at Palmer's. We also have Lulu and the Shoe and Poison Psyche, formerly known as Poison Ivy, if you've been seeing them around. So come hang out at Palmer's. And I must correct, so the singles have been released, but that track has not. What we heard at the top of that set. So if you like what you hear, you can hear it again real soon. And we'll be talking more about that later. But let's get back to the mixtape, shall we? Here is Flaming Lips, She Don't Use Jelly, here on KFAI.
She'll make you breakfast.
Don't the people watch?
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Yeah, I'm gonna turn down the music so we can like actually hear. But yeah, like I get introduced to stuff, but I also like I feel like it's like the same way. In the same way, like my grandmother did the New York Times crossword. Like it's kind of like a fun project to just be like, how am I gonna get these bands together? And sometimes it's like,
well, it's not that I dislike the song either.
I do like the song too, and I think you're right. Like it's not like, I think it's a good song, but like it's not that album. Like that album, there's like so much on that album, but like it's also like what fits in a, you know, because like sometimes when someone puts Tom Petty on the list, like it's just like, well, obviously we're gonna pick the hit, but sometimes it's like the 6-minute deep cut that fits with everything else, and it's like really the fun of like, how am I gonna get this like black metal band to like sit with like, because you can do it, like that's like, I think like that, I don't know, maybe I've always kind of been that way though. Like I remember when like Old Town Road came out and people were like are you allowed? I remember being shocked at the response of people like, are you allowed to do this? And I'm like, this isn't this isn't that far-fetched. Like why is this?
It's just country pop, guys.
Yeah, but like, but there were like think pieces of just like, did Lil Nas X break down? I was just like, well,
like it's never been mashed. Like
there's
it's never been combined before.
It's like that's always been allowed.
But Big and Rich.
Big and Rich.
And it just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's just because of the personality that Lil Nas is, and also the fact that he had Billy Ray Cyrus on the track.
Oh yeah, he's so smart.
Yeah,
people don't give him enough credit for like, do you know how hard it is to be funny on Twitter and be like
and real,
and POC, like and be that ahead of everybody all the time? Like it's just like you. I think people underestimate like how talented Lil Nas is. Like he knows what he's doing. He for sure knows what he's doing. Like Billy Ray Cyrus is like the perfect. It was the perfect choice to put. Like
truly.
And the video too was like so. I don't know. Okay, so when we go back on the air, not that we aren't on the air, where I can see people actually watching this right now, I do want to talk about the show tonight a little bit more, but what about the new record do you want to reveal? Like, should we
anything you want to talk about? Honestly,
how much do you want to like? I guess like what do you want to promo? You're here, you know.
I mean, I definitely want to talk about the release show and like some of the bands involved.
Let's do that then.
But also just like you can ask questions about any of the tracks that you have questions about.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to like spend a little time on like what Ice Climber is still, that'd be okay too. Just because like for clarification, like Ice Climber is like maybe like 20 people deep, but like there's maybe like 10 people who like filter in and out like consistently.
Like who the actual core is.
Yeah. Well, the core is almost everybody that you have on the line and Charlie.
Sure.
But Charlie's been like caught up with like cover bands and stuff. I think he's trying to make money right now.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, we love Charlie. We love playing with Charlie. I feel like I have to remind him about that all the time, and I feel like I remind everybody in the band about that all the time because like not everybody plays consistently, and not everybody wants to, but some people are a little more shy and probably don't want to say they want to play.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, so it gets kind of hard to like balance like who's gonna play what show.
Right.
But sometimes it helps when like, for instance, like this showcase is a very like folksy Americana show.
Oh no, Jujo had to drop off. That's okay. Maybe
he had to.
He
might have accidentally.
Okay. Well,
I think it was just doing a break, wasn't he? Was he just gonna call in on a break?
I think so.
That might have been.
Maybe
like 15 minutes.
That's okay. Gone by. No.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Yes, you're back.
But but my point was that so it's like 20 people, but like probably like 10 consistent people.
Yeah.
But everybody who plays with us in our hearts is considered a climber. You know.
Oh yeah. I love the idea of this project because I've always been like I feel like I kind of got into punk music as a protest to like how I was raised because I was raised by Deadheads. Yeah. You know, like, and my first band was a bluegrass band. Yeah. And like, so it's like, I always kind of have like a soft spot for that music, even though like, it's not completely my thing, but it's also not my thing, if that makes sense.
I mean,
because like, it's like when you're raised in it, it's just like, I always thought like the punks could learn something from the jam bands, but the jam people really need to learn some stuff from the punks.
We don't really.
We
don't really identify as a jam band because a lot of the time.
Not saying you are.
no. It's a very cohesive sound a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like jam bands like Fish and Grateful Dead, they all kind of fit in with each other.
Because it's a very specific sound, like how indie rock became. Like it used to be.
Exactly.
It used to be like an ethos of just like, hey, we are going to improvise. And it's like, hey, we're just independent. We don't have a label. We're
but then also,
thing. And then it became a sound.
Yeah. And
same with jam bands.
It bugs me because like improv has been a thing for a long time. I mean, the blues and jazz musicians, they've improvised for a long time. You know, like Funkadelic had their jammy moments as well. You know, and they're playing blues and funk and whatnot. So I mean, I love the idea of once that we got rolling.
Yeah.
And people wanted to keep booking us. We're like, okay, especially after. After Paul and Jujo were playing together, I was like, I want to keep this going because it was just high octane every time we played with those two. You know,
once we locked in, oh my god.
Speaking of locked in, we have enough time where if we like do a talk break now, we could actually do a talk instead of like a 2-minute like, what's your website? So stand by.
Okay.
Ecstasy. Making plans for Nigel here on Desert Islands. I am making tape for Ice Climber, and we are kind of doing this thing, and I can see some of you are watching with us. So we have some folks with us in the studio, and then we are joined by Jujo virtually. And as you can see, I'm panning to the other camera angle. Now we have the band with us, so we were kind of talking about just the spirit behind improv music, and just like how this band operates in general. And I kind of didn't want to lose the thread of the conversation because we were just talking about how, like you said, there's about like 20 people associated with this like family tree, but now there is kind of sometimes like a core that kind of creates the sound. Is what I don't want to be presumptuous. Is that the case? Like, do the musicians playing that night kind of create the feel of what an Ice Climber set is going to be that night, or do you kind of like read the room and be like, you know what, let's do some country tonight? You know, like how do you decide how to start an Ice Climber set?
It's a combination of it all. Mm-hmm. I mean, we might have a conversation the day of or like a week beforehand when everybody's like locked in as like the lineup, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're playing with Dayself and Lulu. Like, let's do some blues. Let's do some Americana. Let's do some more like Americana friendly psychedelia and whatnot, you know?
Yeah.
And so we'll do that. Like we'll have a quote unquote set list.
Right.
We'll decide if we're going to do covers or not.
Yeah.
And then we'll decide if where we're going to do the improv moments and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like, funny enough, ever since its like inception, no matter who's involved, it's retained like a overall like a core sound.
Yeah.
Because even when like I've had other people do vocals, like Elijah, who's like an opera singer, and then also Leo, who just went completely nuts on the vocals. It was sang some song about like not being able to impress their parents or whatever, and it was called Jimmy. It was awesome. Even then, like it's still, I feel like it still all has like a connective tissue.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is pretty freaking cool to me.
Absolutely.
How it just happens like that. But yeah, we do read the room sometimes. Sometimes we're like, whatever. Let's do our thing. You know? Like we recently did a thing at Can where like Fly Freak Studios wanted us to do a metal set.
Nice.
And then I put together a crew of metal people and they wanted to play the most brutal metal ever. And I was like, I don't think this is the metal they want. I think they want more like Deftones or even System of a Down, but we're gonna give them like the most brutal atmospheric stuff into like Black and Death.
Bordering on black metal.
But the people who enjoy it, and that's always the case, right? It's like you play for the people in the room that want to hear it.
Yes.
And everybody else, it's like, well, whatever. You're not gonna win everybody else.
Yeah. It is kind of weird how like that is kind of like an overlap between music and stand-up comedy of just like sometimes you just kind of have to make an artistic choice of just like, well, this might not be the crowd for this one, but we're here to do what we do and we're gonna do it. And I definitely was guilty in my earlier days of like, no, we're gonna challenge expectations, man. We're not gonna give them what they want. We're gonna give them what they need, and they're gonna remember us. And it's just like I realized, they're gonna remember you for the wrong reasons.
What I love about this crew, not just the people in the call right now, but everybody else involved in Ice Climber, is that like it's so effortless for everybody to push those boundaries.
Yeah.
Because that's just the kind of people they are.
Sure. Yeah.
And everybody's still somehow the sweetest person on the planet. Like, you know, so in my opinion, like I know some of the most punk people and you wouldn't like peg them as punk from just looking at them, right? But in my opinion, their ethos is very punk. But can I introduce everybody else?
Yeah, we should, just because not everyone can see the video call. So like let's introduce who is on the call at least.
Hey, this is Sage. I play saxophone and kind of just joined in Ice Climber probably the most recently, but I've had so many great opportunities with them. It's kind of blown by really quickly.
Nice. Well, thank you for being on the call, Sage. It's good to have you here. Of course, we have been talking with Xochi as well, and Paul, you briefly introduced yourself, but you're also here. You're
I play the drums.
And then can we still hear? Hold on, via satellite. Justin, are you still there?
Ooh, yes, I am.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Jujo, the bassist.
Excellent. So if people like what they heard, where is the best place for them to hear it again? Just because you do have events constantly going, but you also have a record coming out. There's a release show for it. And we should mention the who's, the what's, the where's, and the why's of that. But where can people follow you online so they can keep in touch?
Sure. We're mostly active on Instagram. Facebook just kind of has everything we share from Instagram.
That's pretty much the same boat.
Facebook just makes me depressed half the time, so I don't go on there much. And I never really got into Twitter. But I do most of the social media. I run the Ice Climber pages. But yeah, Instagram's a good place. If you want to listen to our music, best place to find it is on Bandcamp. We'll have the upcoming album that was recorded and then mixed and mastered in a studio on on there. It's called Rage Party, September 8th release. But otherwise, we'll release like sometimes when we have a set that like just turned out really well in the audio recording. Sometimes we have like a field mic. We're like, oh, let's just put it up on Bandcamp.
I love this aspect because I this is why I mentioned being raised by deadheads earlier, because like I really think when you're trying to just make memories and create communal moments, there is something cool about the taper culture of just like, hey, this was actually a really cool moment that kind of translates to this audio medium, and why not put that as a thing that people can engage with at their own time, and or revisit if they were there.
I mean, like Tom Michaels, who records a bunch of shows.
He's amazing.
Well, like
bless Tom.
He doesn't always do board recordings, but he surprised us with recording not just video, but a board recording of the 1-year anniversary show we did at the Punk Bowling. And it sounded so good that we were like, let's just put it up, and it's got pretty much the entire set, maybe with some few edits that I made just to like cut out some dead space and whatnot, or technical difficulties or whatever. But you'll hear like the crowd cheering, or like at the very end, you hear me and everybody else singing happy birthday to Jujo, because the show also doubled as our birthdays, since mine's on the 5th and Jujo's is on the 7th.
I didn't realize you two were that close in date. Wow.
Yeah, and then our anniversary is on the 6th, because that's when we played the Rock Box for the first time. So,
Okay, so speaking of important dates, you mentioned the release. Who is going to play with you on this bill? Because Rage Party is going to be coming out very soon.
Same day as the release part.
Okay, perfect. So who's on the bill with you that day?
I asked like so many people, and all of them I wanted to play with equally. It's just that like everybody was either already playing a show, or was out of town, or sick or broken leg or something.
Right.
And then, but fortunately, like it still ended up being like a really interesting group to put together for like the Rage Party juxtaposition, because like you have Boyder Carr, who I talked to, Darren. I met Darren because played a show over at the old Medusa, which is now the House of Balls. Played House of Balls, right? Out in the parking lot for one of Munir's like experimental shows, but with the metal band Humanity. And Dan was like, oh my God, you need to do like guest vocals, or we need to play a show together. I love this industrial vocal stuff you're doing. And I'm like, oh, thanks. For sure. And then, we played the White Squirrel, and he's like, please hit us up for another show soon. And I was like, well, we have an album coming out. Would you like to play that? And Darren's like, well, I have an album coming out.
Perfect.
Can we make it a double release? And I was like, sure. And I was like, can I pick the rest of the bands though? And Darren was like, yeah, that's fine. So then, I reached out to other groups, and Lavender Daughter had asked us to play their Riverfest. And I thought that they'd be a great addition because they got that like psychedelic Americana punk sound. And so having them like lead into Boyder Carr seemed like a perfect fit. And then like to jump off of that, Mick Vicker, who's been around for a long while. They've rocked the F out. So like wanted to have them for sure. I also asked Din Din, which one of the members of Mick Vicker is in Din Din, and they're so cool, but they were also busy on that day. So turned out it was Boyder Carr, Lavender Daughter, and Mick Vicker, but super excited.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I'm super excited for tonight. If you're just tuning in, this is Desert Islands. I'm talking with Ice Climber, and they're playing tonight at Palmer's. They also have a release show coming up. We were just talking about it. We also heard a track from it. If you're just tuning in and you missed that, you can get on the archive here at KFAI.org. Also, we didn't get time to play the full playlist today, but I'll share that underneath this video that you can watch right now. It'll be in the comments section. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to close things out with Palm here on Desert Islands. You don't have to like
run out to work. I can actually get some food or something.
Oh yeah. It's yeah. Sorry about that. I should have been.
No, you're okay. I think I mistakenly remember you saying 2 hours.
Yeah, 10 to noon.
Oh, you're doing Desert Islands from 10 to noon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then you have a 1 hour interview.
I do the 1 hour because I used to do 2 hours, but I noticed the transition between programs was too stressful, and I noticed people would be like, "We're like, all right, and we're live," and they're like, "Oh, hi," and it's like, all right, I'll just kind of phase it in, and then by the time the guest comes on, there's already been an hour or so of the music that they picked for the program. So it's kind of and then so it's I don't know. It's also, I noticed some musicians really like talking, but some really don't. Mm-hmm. And the whole 2 hour, because I noticed people started watching the videos during the pandemic, and I would ask people hey, do you want to? They're like, can I just send you a track? I don't have enough to say for 2 hours. I'm just you don't have to come for 2 hours. They would get intimidated by I don't know, I'm not funny. I don't know.
I think that people don't realize.
It's fine.
The more introverted musicians is that you don't have to just talk about your music.
Yeah.
You could talk about so many other things.
You talk about whatever. It's
yeah, exactly.
A lot of people want to talk about AI now. I get that because it's weird, and it's also the topic du jour. I guess,
a lot of people feel threatened by AI.
I don't feel threatened by it because if anything, I think will it mess with there's definitely an aspect of the industry that it's just the performer is almost like a product of fashion that's being sold by, I feel there's a bunch of performers who are probably definitely going to be kind of modded out by AI because you can just kind of create that person in an AI. But I think if anything, improv music is going to have a renaissance because there's live music is always there's always going to be people interested in watching people do a thing. Yeah. But I think now that AI is going to come around, there's going to be an interest of wait, if a computer can write a pop song, I think there's going to be more people who is I want to see some dude try to play Mingus. Sure. I want to see a band be a and I think there's going to be a need for people who are no, I just want to see people making stuff who are good at doing stuff, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. I do think the industry is going to change, and people were oh, how are we going to make money? I'm just none of us are already. No. Yeah, if you want to play the game and grind it out, there absolutely is a modest working class living that you can make, but no one's making. I think 9 people are making millions of dollars in this industry.
Sorry to interrupt. I gotta get going.
No worries.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Doc. See y'all tonight. Love y'all.
Bye. You too.
KFAI is proud to present its
get these underwriting things in. I what is it?
Right here.
Oh. Distracted by the pastry.
Oh yeah, no, the pretzel.
Where did you get that pretzel, by the way?
The Gnome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that place is so expensive.
Yeah, that place is really expensive.
My partner wanted to go somewhere with a really big patio for their
birthday. It's one of the best patios.
Yeah, St. Paul.
Yeah, it's kind of near Cathedral Hill-ish.
Yeah.
It's really nice, but
it used to be called the Happy Gnome.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've heard that.
And I think I dined there once a long time ago, and I was at it's that theater over there. It's black owned.
I forget.
Me too. But it's It's like known across the country, even.
Yeah, it's a that is the thing about St. Paul that I don't think people give credit for. Like, there's a lot of like
artistic stuff,
huge institutional artistic stuff that just flies under the radar.
Studio Z is a really cool thing.
Oh, I love Studio Z. It's been like there's like stuff that's been low key at it forever.
Yeah.
That and it's like New York, this is Democracy Now! It's not that Minneapolis doesn't have those things. It's just like I think people just like assume
that everything that we have.
Yeah, they're right off.
Or if St. Paul does things, it's just like, yeah, but that's like the playwrights and the poets and like the people who publish stuff on like the boring bookish artistic people. Like it's like they write it off as like this like nothing goes down there.
But it's funny because like almost for like probably for longer than 2 decades, like I've seen